Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Marianne and on this channel I talk about geopolitics. And today I want to explore how global energy systems, that is fuel, minerals, infrastructure, standards and regulations, shape geopolitical power, dependencies and sovereignty in different regions of the world. Let's dig in. So the importance of energy today has made it a central tool for influence, leverage, dependence and power. This chart shows the explosion of energy consumption since the 1950s, based mainly on coal, oil and gas, but also on nuclear and renewables, which require a broader range of resources to produce. The geopolitics of energy reveals the different tensions and cooperations that happen in the broader world. For example, look at how Europe was scrambling to get rid of Russian gas after the invasion of Ukraine. This dependence on energy gives a lot of power to energy producing countries. Not only that, but energy is really key for the future. It is the motor of today's technologies. Data centers, for example, consume a lot of electricity, and it will continue to increase. While green energy is transforming the paradigm and increasing the demand for green energy solutions. But energy is not only resources, it is also norms, regulations, infrastructures, finance, and training that all give power to energy countries. But how exactly is the sector shaped and shaping geopolitics? So energy is a tool for geopolitics and it can influence countries in several ways. First, through technical standards. Countries create emission standards, safety norms, subsidies eligibility, and all of this shaped the entire market. So for example, when the US helps countries draft nuclear safety standards through the first program, it's not only about safety, but it pushes for the use of American technologies, American companies, and American influence remain essential. Standards shape who can participate, which technologies are legal, which geopolitical bloc a country aligns with. It's a normative power and it is very significant. Not only standards, but also regulations have an influence. Through helping write the laws and train regulators, the countries can tie an entire energy system to an economic model, with long-term dependencies on donors, consultancies, software, spare parts, and foreign expertise. More directly, investment in the infrastructure can create long-term technical, commercial, and political dependence. This includes hydropower built on foreign land, energy network built and operated by foreign countries, and gas pipeline tied to geopolitical relations. In 2023, the capital of Guinea-Bissau experienced a blackout due to unpaid debt to the Turkish operator Car Powership. The country lacked sovereignty over the energy distribution, and this is problematic because it can result in a disconnection in the case of a diplomatic spat. If you control the infrastructure, you control the clients. The financial part of energy deals can also build dependencies and be bundled with mining concessions, long-term supply contracts, ports, and grid upgrades, for example. Finally, scholarships, technical schools, and industrial partnerships can shape generations of engineers aligned with the donor partner countries' technologies, standards, and worldview. So energy is not just a commodity, it's an ecosystem of influence. And even the constructing blocks of these energy technologies can create dependencies. Green technologies require far more metals than fossil fuels technologies. For example, an offshore wind turbine needs 15 times more strategic metals per kilowatt than a coal plant. A modern semiconductor uses 60 chemicals elements versus 10 in the 90s. And there are shortages that will become problematic. There is a deficit of 20% on copper. The demand for lithium would explode by 2040, maybe up to 40 times more than today. And the demand for cobalt is doubling. And altogether, rare earth consumption is exploding. And even aggressive recycling will not be enough. And today, this benefits mainly one country, China, which controls 90% of the rare earth refining and about 70% of its mining. It controls the export flow of most graphite, gallium, and germanium, and entire segments of the EV battery production. They produce one battery every second, for example. So the energy transition is not just about clean energy, it's about who control the minerals that make it possible. And I think Europe illustrates this chokehold quite clearly. Europe dreams of leading the green transition, but it's importing nearly everything needed to make it happen. It has an almost total dependency on external critical minerals. The same for the digital sector raw minerals. Only 2% of global mining investments happen on EU soil. There are gigafactories planned for renewable green technologies, but they are missing upstream supply. The solar panels, batteries, magnets are heavily reliant on the Asian supply. The EU passed the Critical Raw Materials Act in order to fix this, with the objective to extract more, refine more, recycle more, and diversify supply. But regulations won't magically create mines, smelters, and production facilities. So there is a mismatch between ambition and capacity. Europe invests 5 times less than the US and far less than the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, and the result is an economic submersion and dumping by China especially. In addition to that, the EU struggles with geopolitical relevance, as the Union can be quite disunionized on issues that touch to national security, and energy is one of them. This reduces the credibility of the EU and its capacity to act. And unless it solves this mineral bottleneck, Europe may design the transition without controlling its building blocks. The African continent, on the other hand, faces a different dilemma. The continent holds a lot of essential minerals, cobalt, nickel, manganese, and a lot of rare earths in general. But looking at the situation today, there seems to be 2 likely futures. One where Africa becomes the new architect of the new mineral world, and one where, again, it becomes a raw material supplier trapped in extractivism. The Democratic Republic of Congo here is a good example. It has been trapped in a lot of instability and is now stepping up to try to protect its resources and keep the benefits of its exploitation in the country. The country's eastern regions are rich in minerals but have long been plagued by war, poverty, and violence. The DRC has increased export regulations to exert greater control over the market and supply chains. And in November 2025, the government extended a ban on trade from 38 artisanal mining sites in the conflicted eastern provinces, following a United Nations report that illegal mineral revenues were funding armed groups. The government has made efforts to formalize and regulate the often chaotic artisanal mining sector to reduce illicit mineral flows and improve working conditions. And the country filed criminal charges targeting Apple's subsidiaries in France and Belgium, accusing the company's supply chain of including illegally exploited minerals from conflict zones. But the country will continue to face challenges because of persistent conflict in the eastern part of the region, systematic corruption, governance gaps, difficulty enforcing controls, and external economic pressures. On the continent, China is deeply present as well and exerting a lot of long-term mineral diplomacy. So basically it has made a lot of investments in mining operations across Africa, securing long-term control over critical resources like lithium, cobalt, copper, and rare earth metals through investment contracts, and especially through the Belt and Road Initiative, or the BRI. Meanwhile, Western countries are returning with green conditionalities, basically linking access to investment to the fulfillment of specific environmental criteria, which, although it is good for the environment, can increase the bill and is seen as interference by many countries. Gulf states are also investing a lot in mining and ports in the continent, and Russia has notably offered security for minerals agreements, notably in the Sahel, aiming to replace the influence and presence of the West, France, and the United States quite successfully so far. And so in this situation, Africa is facing a choice: sovereign development or dependency 2.0 on foreign investments and their trade-offs. Across the ocean, South America is experiencing with legal models to retain sovereignty and control over their resources. I think here 3 models are worth exploring: Venezuela, Brazil, and Colombia. So Venezuela has adopted a model where international arbitrations in energy contracts are impossible. And so no foreign investor can sue the state in global courts, and this reshapes power dynamics. In parallel, Caracas has reinforced its relationship with Russia and Iran. The Wagner Group has been securing the country's mining infrastructures since 2017, and Chinese, Russian, and Turkish companies have exploited gold, coltan, and rare earth mines, circumventing the sanctions imposed on Venezuela. But this also comes with the reliance on non-Western partners, notably Russia, and reliance on private military groups to secure the oil regions. So Venezuela is protecting its sovereignty over energy resources, not necessarily by possessing it, but by controlling and securing its access through legal architecture and physical control. On the other hand, in Brazil, the system is a hybrid with public control, private capital, and regional projection. The state majority-owned oil company Petrobras is the state's geopolitical tool. The law in Brazil gives Petrobras the role of sole or preferred operator on petrol and gas mining, and this allows Brazil to retain control of its strategic resources while authorizing a co-exploitation strictly supervised. Petrobras also participates in energy governing bodies, combining state regulation and contractual compatibility. At the same time, Brazil invests in renewables, biofuels, and regional power integration. This allows Brasilia to articulate protectionism, regionalism, and green diplomacy. The idea is to protect sovereignty through state-led but internationally compatible frameworks. And in Colombia, the system is completely the opposite of Brazil and Venezuela. Here, sovereignty is completely fractured between the courts, local communities, regional authorities, indigenous people, armed organizations, environmental groups, and the central government. And foreign miners must negotiate with everyone. It's messy, but it's democratic, and it's unstable, but participatory. The country is the only one in the region to have accepted the private ownership of underground resources for a long time. And in contrast with Brazil and Venezuela, in Colombia, the land is the center of the negotiation. So let's zoom out from the global power game for a moment and examine the harsh reality. Even if governments ramp up the exploitation of the resources, the local people don't always win. Venezuela has some of the largest proven oil reserves in the world, one paper that could be the golden ticket to prosperity. But in reality, much of that oil wealth is never translated into stable, inclusive development. Over decades, corruption and politicization of the state oil company, PDVSA, hollowed out technical capacity. Many of its skilled workers were replaced by political loyalists. Rather than investing in infrastructure, a large share of oil revenues were diverted to populist social programs and siphoned off through patronage networks. Massive financial flows were mismanaged. According to one detailed analysis, billions of dollars were lost or misappropriated through corruption, and production even collapsed because of mismanagement. The country ended up importing refined petroleum despite being an oil giant. In addition, sanctions, political meddling, and the lack of investment have created further instability. Meanwhile, ordinary Venezuelans suffer from hyperinflation, economic collapse, and declining public services. According to human rights analysts, oil money has become a political tool, rewarding elites, consolidating loyalty, and suppressing dissidents rather than lifting the entire population. On the other side of the world, the Philippines is racing to extract minerals for the green energy transition, especially nickel, a key component for electric vehicle batteries. But that key transition comes at a steep social and environmental cost. In regions like Caracas, there are more than 20 active nickel mines, but local communities report polluted rivers, silted farmlands, and contaminated drinking water. And health issues are widespread, such as respiratory illnesses, skin diseases, and other conditions linked to the mining pollution. In Palawan and other ancestral lands, mining overlaps with indigenous territories, sometimes without proper fee, prior, and informed consent. Biodiversity is also under threat. Forests are stripped, mangroves are cut, and fragile ecosystems are irreversibly degraded. The promised economic benefits don't always materialize locally as well. Many jobs go to outsiders, and mining companies fail to deliver meaningful social investment. In the country, there is also a human rights dimension where defendants have faced intimidations, criminalization, and even violence. The deforestation makes communities more vulnerable to flooding and landslides caused by earthquakes and typhoons and other climate disasters. So while the world grabs minerals to build a clean future, for many Filipinos the cost is lived now in polluted water, lost land, health risks, and fragile livelihoods. These two countries, Venezuela and the Philippines, illustrate a painful truth. Extracting resources doesn't automatically mean shared prosperity. Without strong institutions, transparency, local rights, and reinvestment, resource wealth can become a burden, a source of dependence, environment destruction, and social injustice. So in conclusion, resources have always shaped geopolitics, but the sharp increase in energy needs and the green transition require strategic investments and regulatory framework to reduce dependencies, protect sovereignty over resources, and ensure their exploitation to the benefit of local populations. The geopolitics of energy reflects and shape at the same time the global geopolitical order. It is not only about who has the oil, but also who controls the systems, the standards, the metals, and the narrative. With growing needs resulting from the development of new technologies, this paradigm will continue in the coming years. The question is which country will adapt better and come out winning this game, and which system can provide the most for the economy and the people at the same time. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, that you find it informative, and I will see you in the next video. And tell me about what you think. Which system do you think is more likely to protect a country's sovereignty and benefit the local populations?